Journal. Enigmatic Writing. Steel airlock door creaked shut behind me. Footsteps investigating the noise drew close for a moment, but soon faded. I lowered myself into the bed with a sigh. My right hand unconsciously drifted to the back of my head. There beneath my pillow, fell upon a picture frame. Within it, a disheveled room full of scrap iron, oil stains, and single beautiful flower. I don't know how to pronounce your name right now, so I'm gonna say Edda. My beloved Edda, I pine for the chance to see your smile unfurl across your face, set in equal parts courageous fire and innocence. I long to hear your voice, sweet like a spring breeze. Let it speak my name, and I shall die a happy man. I could hear the nervous shuffling outside my door of someone afraid to disturb me. Not afraid enough, it seems. I returned the photo to its hiding place and answered without bothering to conceal my irritation. I'm awake. What is it? I skimmed the manual I'd been given, then tossed it on the bed. I returned to Edda's smile. Purposely preserved within the picture frame. The echelot. My lips formed the word time and again as I watched the new ship in tow from my cabin porthole. Damn, dude, there's so many of these. That's crazy. Anyways, I'm gonna keep reading. I heard for the capital as the sun dipped below the Norende Plateau. My steps are unnervingly light without my armor, and most clothes hang oddly on me. Most of all, I feel naked without a weapon. I was greeted at the city's edge by the sound of a whistle marking the arrival of a merchant ship. Between the merchants and wholesalers, the dock workers unloading crates, then the tired crewmen and the eager children fed by the exotic wares. The port was buzzing with people. As I pushed my way upstream through the crowd, along the avenue toward the palace, I spotted a splendid building, its roof a rich navy. This must be the inn. The old fisherman described. Inside, I found a man with a gentle mind sitting behind a well-polished counter. I asked after any vacancies. He replied with a I have never seen this word spelled out before. Chagrined. Whatever. Sorry, we're full up for the night. It feels quiet for a full inn, but I don't suppose I can blame him. A walking customer at this hour? Clearly not a local. No one to vouch for me. Any respectable innkeep would offer some version of the same excuse. When I inquired after a place to eat, he said down by the port there should be a cheap pub catering to sailors that's open until morning. Lovely. Back down I go. At the hill's bottom, I ate my fill at a food cart aimed at drunken sailors. Now it's back up to the inn. I refused to spend the night, kept awake by carousing seamen. Yes, I will pronounce seaman as seaman every time. You cannot stop me. I let myself into the empty house next door to the inn. I'll just have to sleep lightly. I was awakened by the sound of sword practice, shouts of exertion, and the pleasant smell of toast. What are the king's guards, perhaps? Looks about my age and reasonably skilled. I lay my makeshift bed, lazily counting his swings. Hurry up, Bowen, or you'll be late. Upon hearing the innkeeper's words, the youth replied and made his way down from the misty hilltop and into the inn. The scent of breakfast coming from next door has me drooling. One bite of my rock-hard bread brought me back to reality. The bacon burnt coal black, and the murky, bitter coffee made me wish that it hadn't. Suppose I can expect no more from a shabby stand in the port. After choking down my fill, I climbed the hill toward the palace. Bitch, I love lore. Supplied by a series of lush waterways, Caldisla, I hate the name of this place, was once formidable city fortress. These days is Hooked Central Avenue is lined with a magic shop, general store, armory, and other businesses. A large gate stands as a vestige of that era, though now it serves mostly as a site for the town bulletin board. This year's boar hunt is set to begin once we had the final slot filled. Weapons provided by the hunting committee. A boar hunt? With the duchy attacking? I was speechless. As I made my leave, I felt someone grasp my shoulder. This fellow says he'll join the hunt. We'll ride today. I turned, shock and irritation laid bare, only to find Owen, the young man I had seen practicing in the fog this morning. My initial protests were drowned in a rising cheer, and as the smith handed me a broadsword and buckler, I dumbly accepted. Potions from the town chemist followed. Between their expectant smiles and Owen's grin, I found myself unable to say no. On the road, I was told a litany of facts I cared nothing about. This is why I can't read stories anymore. I have to relearn how to speak out loud. It's been a hot minute since I have. The search for food to fatten up before hibernating apparently drives the giant boars to local farms, where they raid crops and injure workers. As a result, the city gathers volunteers each year to hunt them. As captain of the guard, I discover, responsibility overseeing the hunt falls upon Owen. The armorer was slated to participate, but a leg injury has him on crutches. Owen says he was searching for a replacement when he found a promising candidate during his morning practice. Lucky him. We walked a full, tiring day, stalking our prey. First the trader gave out, then chatter dried up between the two young castle guards. Sunset found us upriver from the city, at the entrance to the Norende Canyon. Just as we decided to make camp, a rustling came from the thickets behind us. The boar that leapt out was indeed a vicious, one-tusked monster that had survived the last year's hunt. In a flash, it gored one of the guards, then the other, leaving only Owen, me, and the trader. The boar stamped the ground, preparing to charge the old man, now paralyzed with fear. I expect we'd all given up hope for the kindly old merchant. But the beast suddenly changed course. With only seconds to react, Owen landed a mighty blow, felling the monster in a single strike. I expect we'd all given up hope for the kindly old merchant, and the beast suddenly changed course. With only seconds to react, Owen landed a mighty blow, felling the monster in a single strike. I set about treating the young guard's injuries. The trader, clearly still worked up, narrated Owen's victory to the two boys. With every reverent word, I felt as though I was being derided as useless. The others took to sleep while I sat to keep the fire going. Owen rose and came to sit beside me. Thanks for before. I kept silent, but he pressed on. There's the picture of him. I'll read up to 5, and then we'll take breaks whenever y'all want lore stuff. The boar only changed the boar only changed targets because you circled behind me and channeled your energy at it. Thanks to you, we're not carting home a corpse. He sat waiting, apparently bent on receiving a response. His grin is infectious. I took the surest course of action, I replied as I held aloft my broadsword. I had my doubts. This blade was up to the task. The weapon's edge was chipped in places, its length bent. With a gentle shake, the pommel gave an unsettling rattle. Owen burst into laughter at the noise. Apparently, my response passed muster. He continued his grin, never flagging. Starting tomorrow, just stay at my place. I'll give you a word to my father to open up a room for you. I was dragged on this hunt, but if it earns me a real breakfast, it's a bargain I'd take gladly. The innkeeper's voice and the smell of coffee being laid on the table roused me from my thoughts. You're from Enigmatic. Eh? I don't know. I'm gonna assume that's how it's pronounced. You want an extra sugar then? Politely declining, I took a sip. Quality beans roasted to perfection. Exquisite. After the hunt, we carried the wounded back to town. We tied the boar to a high tree branch. Owen said that the people would come for it later. After seeing the boy's treatment, Owen invited me to his home, the inn. Savior was the title he used when introducing me to his father. I was mortified. I was on a journey of personal discovery, originally come from Anaheim. They bought my arbitrary lies. Without hesitation, they welcomed me. That evening, we dined early, and well, the boar had been carted back to town, and our share of the meat filled the table. Once Owen returned from the palace, we sat down to feast. The innkeeper is a brilliant cook, and we ate, drank, and reveled into the night. Come by my place tomorrow. I want you to meet the king, he repeated. He repeated himself time and time again, words slurred from the wine, despite my pretending to be asleep. I've been in Kaldisla. I hate this name. A week, with no sign of the smoke signal. I joined Owen in his training some mornings, walked the city streets, chat with the elderly, drink with the sailors at the dock, arm wrestle the drunks. Mostly, I just passed time. Today was another peaceful afternoon, same as any other. Owen was at the palace since morning. I was enjoying a cup of the innkeeper's coffee. It happened in an instant. I felt as if someone was set to plunge a knife into my back. I turned and saw the window. Through it, the northern sky was on fire, in a flash of pure white. Moments later, the inn shook. An earthquake? Shockwave. All Kaldisla trembled. The innkeep moaned about the set of heirloom teacups breaking. I had my doubts that the teacups would be the worst of the damage. Outside, I spied some injured people, but the city and palace stood unharmed. Another flash lit the sky to the northwest, close, the Norende Plateau, perhaps. Once again, beforehand, let's read this funny little book. It wasn't until the following morning that Owen came home. By the time he finished muttering about his morning training, he was snoring. A knock at the door put an end to the brief rest that afternoon. The river's jammed with rubble! After receiving the scout's report, Owen wolfed down the late breakfast his father had readied, then turned to me. Sounds like I may need a hand later. I nodded, eyes fixed on the northwestern sky. The bridge across Kaldisla River has lain in ruins since the duchy felled it. Now, a flotilla of further rubble, countless corpses approach from upstream. Upstream means Norende Canyon, and the village of Norende at its source. I suppose that's our epicenter. Oh, that's when Norende got nuked. Owen and I split up to join and search for Owen and I split up and joined the others searching for victims. Owen seemed to search the river's mouth, while I gathered men from town and searched further upstream. I have a long sword at my side. A new one. A new one this time, in good condition. Seems the smithy's been busy. The armorer, the old trader, and the dockhand joined me on the shadowy path through the canyon. A few paces in, the armorer spotted something floating by. A young man floating face up and snagged on rocks. It's Tiz! We ran to his side. He's breathing! The boy's alive! While the others rejoiced, I was more concerned with the ominous shadow surrounding us. Goblins? What are monsters doing here? There ought not to be monsters so close to human settlement. Not in these numbers. The townspeople were clearly overwhelmed. No doubt this was their first such encounter. I hesitated, unsure for a moment. No, I had to take action. When I give the signal, hoist the boy out and sprint for the canyon's mouth. Is that clear? Not a return from each of them. Sudden movement would distract the creatures for a moment. I hope that's all I needed. That's all I'd need. Now go! Thankfully, both merchants escaped, as well as the dockhand with the unconscious boy across his shoulders. Left alone, I faced a quickly closing circle of enemies. So be it, I thought. Come closer, then. A bit more. A deep growl emerged from my chest. Blackbane! When I emerged from the canyon on shaky legs, I was greeted by 3 anxious faces. It was this fellow that saved me, I said, holding aloft a badly worn longsword. A huge, proud grin threatened to split the armorer's cheeks. We hurried the boy back to town. I carried him to the inn. I need spirits and all the bandages you've got. And Gramps, all the potions you've got too. I laid him in the bed by the window, stripped him down and had a look at his wounds. Thankfully, they were light, though he still showed no sign of stirring. Owen's group returned soon after. A few of his men wounded. They'd run into monsters as well, leaving men to guard the gates. He made for the palace to report report and formulate a plan. When he came by to deliver the medicine, the old trader remarked that the boy's clothing was bore a Norende pattern. 3 days, the boy stayed at the inn. Still no sign of waking. The innkeep says he's run a fever the entire time. This afternoon is a warm one. Now I'm watching the innkeeper nod off at the counter. Why am I yawning? Probably because I'm hungry. Anyways. The aftershocks have stopped. He's slowly returning to the city. But a shadow lingers over the earth, the sky, and the townspeople's hearts. Glancing through the window, I saw people monitoring, motioning toward the port. Another merchant ship, I thought. But no. Their shouts were anxious, not excited. I stepped outside, following the gaze of the others in the street. Saw a merchant vessel drifting into port. But something was wrong. The ship was listing hard, its aft mast broken. I sprinted down the hill. As I ran, I noticed a dark, heavy color spreading through the water from the mouth of the bay inward. I caught snippets as I passed. The sea's begun to rot. The ships can't leave the bay. No fish in the last few days. Few days. And the change began when the quake hit. The ship listed further, rescue boats surrounding it. Most of the cargo had already been cast overboard. When the boats reached the pier, a parade of passengers and crew emerged, each looking more exhausted than the next. By some miracle, there were no lives lost. But most of the freight followed the ship to the bottom of the bay. The merchants mourned their lost profits, and the crew their vessel. The seamen had lost their sea, and the passengers were now stranded. Despair ran rampant, except for one young girl. It's Agnes. She was full of questions about the quake 4 days prior, about the flash that lit the sky, about Orende. Did you know someone in the village? Perhaps family, perhaps. Her jaw set at my query. Was it anger? Fear? She wordlessly shook her head from side to side. No. I just figured hearing you ask about the quake so soon after weathering the sea. I thought maybe you were a friend of the boys. Boy? What boy? Came her reply. Suspicion played on her face. But as the next boat reached the pier, we were shooed out of the harbor. Another visitor from Anaheim, eh? Anaheim. Huh? Must be tired. Why don't you stay with us until you're settled? I recall a different sort of greeting, just a sour smile his way. He responded with a grin. We have a sick one. We've been sick. We have a sick one in the back, but we don't mind. The girl replied with a nod. Her name, I learned, was Agnes. She seemed guarded about her past. Not that I can talk. Conversation continues to be awkward. She shows interest in what was happening in the country when the quake hit. For my part, I ask about the sea. Her ship had left before the earthquake struck. She says about halfway between Anaheim and Caldicila, their pace began to slow. Seawater clouded and dead fish began to float to the surface, first small ones, then larger. As they neared port, the wind died. It was pure luck that the ship drifted in before going calm. Other vessels they'd passed in the bay, he reported, were less fortunate. She listened as I recount what happened in the canyon, the color draining from her face. I told her the village was likely at the quake's epicenter, and that monsters had flooded the area in its wake. We talked late into the night. An urgent wire from Caldicila came during the night. Sky Knight's routed. The Vassal and crew commandeered the SK ship, with Adea in tow. Hey, she is. The Florsham Inner Sea remains unsullied, and serves now as a holding place for ships from neighboring waters as well. I walked the port, asking after Vessel's whereabouts, or those of the ship that she stole, at least, but was unable to uncover anything useful. My continued search brings me to the Anaheim proper. The ship's almanac has this to say: a clockwork metropolis nestled in Harena's sandy bosom. Here, time above all is sacred. A massive timepiece crowns the kingdom, fueled, as all of Anaheim, by caseless currents originating from the Temple of Wind to the south. I crossed the desert and arrived at the city's edge. It seems those ceaseless winds have ceased in the chasm's wake, deprived of a precious power source. Anytime people now suffered under forced manual labor. Those I met were too tired and apathetic to answer my question. One man, perhaps motivated by the coin I flashed, blushed awkwardly as he stammered this. Try, Yuliana Woods. That's crazy. That's a crazy thing to read. Alright. I reached out a hand to hand him the money, but he turned and ran without taking it. Very odd. I returned to my almanac. Yuliana Woods, the hidden heart of an ancient wood northeast of Anaheim. The air in front of Anaheim's royal palace was taut. The Vestal heaped abuse upon the king. Then presented something to the agitated masses assembling there. It was a chain bearing an evil sigil. The glassy-eyed mob reached fever pitch. The Vestal pointed south, and the delirious mob turned their eyes to the sky, crying out her name. I moved to approach her, but the zealous crowd was packed tight. Fearing for his life, the king fled to the palace, escorted by his guard.